I've actually never talked to anyone about this. Oh my god, why am I crying? But hi friends, my name is Joy. Welcome back to Joyful Encounters. In this channel, I like to talk about chasing my dreams and all of my feelings as I go through my 20-something years. And in this video, we're gonna talk about how I discovered my life purpose, what my life purpose is. So the reason why I decided to make this video is because a lot of y'all have been DMing me. Some of my friends in real life have also started asking me questions like, what is my life purpose? If you're new here, I quit my job as a software engineer in New York City earlier this year to give myself about 2 years to sort of explore and pursue my dreams, which are startups and content. Receiving all those questions have sort of made me reflect on my life. For me, it was sort of natural to want to do this and to take all these steps, but I never quite stopped and asked myself why. So I actually went on like an hour-long journaling session a while back to figure out my true purpose and what truly drives me in life. And I think before we talk about my life purpose, I want to tell you a bit about my upbringing and my family background because that will put a lot of things into perspective. Friends, I feel very nervous filming this video because really reflecting on my life purpose made me realize that I've actually never talked to anyone about this. Not even my best friends, not even my family, just because I think if I talk to them about my reflections, I have a feeling that I might cry and I might never stop. But you guys are my best friends, so we're gonna get personal. For my family upbringing, I feel like there are three individuals who are extremely influential. And first is my grandma, my mother's mother, who I actually never met because she passed away a decade before I was born, but I just heard like a lot of stories about her life from like my parents, my uncles, my cousins, and I feel like even though I never met her, her life really influenced me on the way I see the world. So my grandma, she was born in Fujian, China, and she only received, I believe, a primary school education. And she moved to Indonesia on a boat, and it was a very like hard upbringing for her. I feel like I lost some of the details here, but she married my grandpa. During that time, men are typically like the head of the household, right? But even though my grandma didn't receive like formal education, she wanted to help out and contribute. So she decided to learn how to make batik, which is the Indonesian traditional, I want to say fit, not fit. Oh, okay, let me Google. It's an Indonesian traditional fabric type. And so she learned how to do that. She actually got pretty good at it. She started a batik business that eventually grew into a factory. She ended up being the breadwinner of the family, which is very non-traditional at that time. She raised my mom and my mom's 5 siblings, paid for all of their school fees, and she basically like built a life for herself from scratch. I'm going to talk about the insights later on. The second story is the story of my dad. My dad is a dentist and he has his own practice along with my mom. But my dad, he was very poor growing up. And not only was he poor, but like he grew up in an abusive household. And he didn't grow up in Jakarta, which is like the major city. He grew up from like outside of Jakarta. Growing up, he would tell me like, oh, you're so lucky because like, you know, for the first 20 years of my life, weekends and weekdays were the same because there was like there was no such thing as like going out in my like life. It's just really sad hearing that, but he got accepted to like the best university in Indonesia. I think for the first like 10 years, like he worked for other dentists, and he told me how, you know, when you were starting out, like you were not making a lot. My dad took like other jobs as well so that he could make ends meet. In his 30s, it was when he was able to start his own clinic, which ended up being the practice that he has till now. But he told me how it was really hard, like especially the first like 10 years out of school and even the first early days of starting a business. And he would say that his life only stabilized in his 40s. Not only is my dad someone who like is successful, he's a really good father and husband, which is like kind of crazy because oh my god, why am I crying? But he had like a really sad upbringing. And I think my dad always warned me kind of growing up that like being able to pay for my school fee and all that, like having money, it's not something that came out of thin air. It took like literal decades for him to get to the position that he was in, and that journey was like full of like suffering and that it was hard. And I think that is what's really interesting to me is that I have a lot of friends whose parents also like suffered, and they always tell their kids that they don't want their kid to go through that same suffering. But what my dad told me was that like suffering, struggling, failing, it's all part of your life, and it's something you need to actually actively be doing when you're young, like when you're in your 20s and in your 30s. Okay, third story is of my eldest brother. Before I was born, my family tree was of my mom, my dad, my brother, and they actually had another son. He passed away when he was 12. My eldest brother, who I also never met, he was diagnosed with cancer when he was 9, and he passed away when he was 12. Very short life. I always knew, like even as a kid, that I had an elder brother who I never met because he passed away. Like I've always like known that, and it was something that was like not a secret. But I don't think I like internalized it until I was like I want to say in college. So we would go to his grave like once a year since I was like, a kid. I never quite like really thought about it. Maybe because, when you're a kid, you're just immature and you're kind of stupid. You don't really realize a lot of the things that's going on around you. So there was one time when I was in college and I was like studying in LA. So like I went back home. We went to his grave. Oh my God. I think I was like 20 at that time. It was the first time that I went to his grave and cried, because before that I would go to his grave and wouldn't really feel anything because like I never met him. When I was 20, I realized that like, oh my God, like he didn't even get to live past 12 years old. And here I was, like studying in LA. How did I get so lucky? When you're young, you always feel like you're healthy. You always feel like you have another year, you have another decade. But then like there's someone in my family who literally passed away really young. If I try answering the question of why did my brother not get to live past a certain age, but why was I able to live this really fortunate life? There's just no answer to that, right? There's no way of answering why my brother didn't get to live and I did. Sort of what like I concluded from that was we take our health for granted. We take the fact that like we have tomorrow, next year, and so on. But the fact is like in life, even tomorrow is not promised. Most of the time we do have another day, but we really don't know what the future holds. I started internalizing this idea that like life is so precious and it's so fragile. If you're fortunate enough to live, you should really embrace life and live it to the fullest. I started seeing life as like a gift, and I started seeing life from like something that I need to make the most out of. The opportunities that have come my way, whether it was like going to a 4-year college in the US, all of these opportunities were not to be taken for granted. Yes, life is long and you don't have to do everything now, but life is also short. I don't feel the burden to like live my life to like my full potential, but I want to, and I want to chase my dreams and sort of make the most out of all the opportunities that I've had, because I've been very privileged. And I feel like if I truly treasure this gift of life that's been given to me, then I will make the most out of it. If all I did was just like watch Netflix all day, again, like your value as a human is not tied to like your productivity or your achievements. But for me personally, if I did that, I would feel like I'm not making the most out of my life. I'm not making the most out of like the opportunities that have been handed to me, and it feels like I'm not honoring life, and that makes me really sad. When I think about like my grandma who like was able to start a business, like a legitimate business from nothing. There are a lot of times in my life where I wish I had more resources and so on. And in life, you can always wish that like your circumstances were better, but you need to make the most out of the cards that were handed to you. I mean, my grandma was handed very bad cards, but she was able to build a family, she was able to build a business, and she was able to do all these things that I don't even know if I can do. My dad has gone through hell and back to like build this life for himself and for us. And I feel like if I don't make the most out of the privileges I've had, the opportunities that I've had, then I'm also not appreciating his effort. Of course, it's not like he's like, hey Joy, go build $1 billion company. It's always just been like, hey Joy, like just know that the opportunities you've been given, they're really scarce, and there are like 1,000 people who would want to have the education that you did receive and so on. So you need to make the most out of it. And sort of like all of that made me realize I have to like make the most out of life. Just like my purpose of living is honestly making the most out of life. The way I see making the most out of life isn't just like going on vacations, isn't just like doing the things I like, but it is truly like valuing. It really is like, it's really as simple as that. When it comes to what my dad said about suffering, whenever I had hardship when I was like younger and even until like early 20s, I used to feel so angry. I used to feel so mad. I'm like, again, like, why do I have to go through these challenges again? My dad always told me like, it's normal, it's normal. Like, in fact, if you've never gone through challenges, it's like a red flag, because it means you're not reaching far enough. It means you're not trying hard enough. I think I only internalized this like messaging 2 years ago when I realized that like everything in life is hard. No matter what choice or path you choose, it's gonna be some kind of hard, and there is suffering no matter where you go. And a lot of times in life, you can't anticipate the suffering, and suffering is very much a part of life. If you make your decisions based on path of least suffering, it's gonna be really hard for you to grow, and it's really hard for you to like live your life to the fullest because you're avoiding a lot of things. I've sort of resigned to the fact that no matter what path I choose, it has these sets of suffering, but at least it's something I feel is like worth suffering for. That like has been very liberating. It's made me a lot more courageous as well. I don't just see life from like a career perspective. I see life from like a personal life perspective. Career, personal life, these are all things that I feel like contribute to like living life to like the fullest. When I decided to quit my job and say goodbye to New York, I knew I was taking a big risk. When I look at my dad, when I look at my grandmas, I know that they took a risk as well, and it took them a long time, but they were able to like get a lot out of that experience. That's something I also want for myself, you know? If I continued pursuing a path that I already knew wasn't working for me, then it meant that I was not living my most authentic life. It meant I was not living my life to the fullest, and that just feels very wrong to me at my core. My desire to do content and pursue startups, it's mainly because I want to play with my strengths. I want to do what I feel like I'm good at. I feel like if you do what you're good at, you're able to do more with your career, and that contributes to everything I said about like living my life to the fullest. But I could very much be wrong. I could very much hate content and stop making videos or decide that startups are not for me. These are all likelihoods that are very much possible. Exploring this path is better than continuing on a path that I already knew that wasn't making me happy, already knew wasn't what I wanted in the long run. And I know it feels like for a lot of people, it feels like a big risk, but I feel like the biggest risk you can take is genuinely like not taking a risk at all, living in this like alternate what if. At least now, even if things fail, I know that I've tried and I stay true to like my intuition. I stay true to like what I wanted. That makes me feel good because I'm living in alignment with like my life purpose. Right. I feel like I got so emotional at different points in this video because I just feel like at the end of the day, like I just want to keep living my life to the fullest, making sure that I don't take any of it for granted. My privileges, the opportunities that I've gotten, the fact that I'm healthy, the fact that I'm alive, the fact that I have these dreams, I don't want to take any of it for granted. And that's sort of why I'm like going on this path. Like living in regret, living in possibilities, like overthinking, that's not living your life to the fullest. That's restricting yourself because of fear. And I really don't want to be someone who lives their life and make decisions based off fear, but instead to do things from a point of courage. If my grandma could build a company after literally migrating with just a primary school education and migrating on a boat, and my dad moved to Jakarta and be able to build this life for himself, I feel like nothing is impossible, and that the risk I'm taking in comparison to theirs is so small. I just want to be someone who like lives with joy and is happy and is kind towards others. Then it means I'm truly appreciating this gift of life. If I constantly wish circumstances were different, constantly delay things, or live in fear, I would feel like I'm not living my life to the fullest. This is my personal definition, my values. And the beautiful thing about really loving life and wanting to live your life to the fullest is you're not afraid of the bad things because you know that they're also a part of life. Although you don't want them, there's no use in like resisting or refusing. And yeah, so that's the video. I hope I was coherent. And bro, I feel like I got emotional a lot because I've never quite said it out loud to anyone, like not my friends, not my parents, because I feel like if I did, I could never stop crying. I just have so many feelings in here, and have another video next week that's gonna talk about like life update stuff. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next video, okay? Love you, bye.